And now I have the honor of introducing our host, Peter McNab. Peter is a Denver hockey alum, and this year is actually his 50th anniversary of his first year as a DU student. So Peter, thank you for giving us something to celebrate in 2020. And
yeah. Well, thank you so much for including me. When Coach called and he said that, you know, they wanted to do something for the DU fans, it was just absolutely my pleasure because, you know, it was funny. You sent us a little script of what you'd like to do, and I was showing you. I told you, I showed it to the girls. Speak briefly of your DU career, and I just laughed because, you know, it was 3 years, and it was the 3 years that had probably the 3 years that had the biggest impact on my life. I was coming from San Diego. I was on a baseball scholarship / hockey scholarship. If I was going to do anything, it was going to be a baseball player. But I got here, and I came in with 7 other freshmen. And there was myself and Rob and Arnie that were roommates, Vic and Plu, Braggs and Buzz, Sargent, and Kriegs. I mean, I can remember to the day the first time we met and the impact that those 8 guys, or the 8 of us, those 7 guys had on my life. We were lifetime friends. We still get together and talk every once in a while whenever we're in different places. So just the whole Denver situation was so important in my life. So anytime that I can talk about DU hockey and you know, where it's come from, how it's grown, how it continues to be one of the premier, you know, schools in the country academically and as far as the hockey. So please, it's absolutely my honor. And now I get to bring in the other part of this of our chat. And you know, it's funny. I've known the coaches for Denver University. A lot of Ralph Backstrom, certainly. Craig Patrick's been a longtime friend. Marshall Johnson, but the last 2 especially, and Jim Montgomery, who was has been a good friend, and Monty looks like he's going to get this stuff back together in his life, and trust me, I'm the last guy, and you'll figure out what this means. I'm the last guy that's going to throw stones at Monty. I'm just hoping that because he's a good coach and he helps people be better. And then the one that before that, George Gwozdecki, actually I've known George for 45 years. He was a roommate with my brother at Wisconsin, and they were in each other's weddings. So I've known the coaches for Denver University and the impact that they have had on their student athletes and how good the coaches have been. And so when I was talking with people about, hey, you know, Monty's going to Dallas, you know, who do they think is going to be the new coach? And I said, geez, you know, I don't know. You know, I don't know what the pecking order. And then this was probably the most interesting part for me when somebody finally said, hey, did you hear the new coach was? I said, David Carle. And I made a couple of phone calls, and honestly, without him listening, he can't listen to this, there wasn't a single person that didn't go, good choice. You know, that's a really good choice. There was 1 or 2 maybe, he's a little young, but he'll grow into it. But that is a really good choice for that program. So that being said, I will introduce Coach Carle and thank him for having me be part of this, and maybe just what you've been doing through all of this as you know, just how this crazy time has been for you, your family, the coaches, and all of those things.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. You know, and thanks, Emily, for setting this all up. It's great to be able to engage with everybody and so many of our fans, donors, and alumni, to be able to get everybody on a Zoom call and talk about Denver hockey. And when we were talking initially, as someone who could host, the first person that popped into my head was Peter, because I know how meaningful his time was here at Denver, very similar to myself. And so many people on the call, how impactful the university has been in a lot of our lives, and then in particular Denver hockey. and how much it's impacted all of us. And it's really been a springboard for many of us, to set us up for, when we're recruiting kids, we don't talk about setting them up for the next 4 or 5 years. We talk about setting them up for the next 50 years. And I think if there's one thing that hopefully connects all 9 of us that have coached here, from Murray to Ralph to George and Monty and Frank and Marshall, and is that we all share that same feeling and that same passion that you come to Denver not only for the great hockey experience, but really for the great academic experience and the great social experience, and the networking that you're going to have and the ability to set yourself up. And I think our alumni group, as was displayed this year in the 70th anniversary celebration, is really rich and vibrant and connected. And it was great to have everybody here back on campus to show how special I think this community really is, and means so much to us all in different ways. But I know Peter shares that same passion that I do, and as many of you do on the call. And so it's been an interesting time, Peter, for all of us that are in the sports world, and for many of us. I mean, the pandemic has affected everybody, it seems now, in one way or the other. And our season ended back on March 13th. Our players went home the 14th, 15th, and 16th. We were fortunate enough to be able to buy all of our kids flights homes, no questions asked, got them on planes to be back with their families. And March 16th was my last day in the office with our staff, and we haven't been back in the office since. And so we've had to use communication techniques like this to stay in touch with our players. We do team Zoom meetings, doing them a little more regularly now, every other week. But we did all of our one-on-one year-end meetings via Zoom, right, 2 weeks after our season ended. And I think it's really important in this time to try and over-communicate and talk to our players, talk to our recruits, their families, and use this technology. It's a great technology that we're using right now. It's not preferable. Certainly, we'd rather be face-to-face and in person doing something like this, but it's the best we have, and we've had to learn. I remember we first started, I was just using Zoom on my phone. I had no idea you could use it on a computer and see everybody. And I'm sure you're the same, Peter, with some of the learning curve that we've had to do with it. But I think it's been trying to make the most of it, and it's been unique certainly for our staff and for our program, but we're trying to do the best we can.
I think back, and I've allowed myself to do that, think all the way back. Have you also, I was just wondering, have you talked with the parents, especially with your freshmen, and because it is that time when they're handing them off to you, and about how they're going to prepare for this, and what is the season looking like? What is there? Is it January 1, or what are we DU fans looking forward to as far as time-wise?
Yeah, as far as parents, I would say our returning players, we haven't had any communication with their parents. We sent an email a couple weeks ago about some dates to pencil in, with Parents Weekend and Thanksgiving break and Christmas break and first days back and finals and all these dates, so that they can start to plan. But to your second point, at this point it's still pretty fluid, I think. I mean, things are penciled in. We haven't been told otherwise for our season, where our schedule has remained as is, and our start date has remained as is. Now, I think we're all anxiously watching the league that you're a part of in the National Hockey League, and seeing how their return to play goes, how the NBA's return to play goes, what the NFL is doing. And I believe that based on how those things go will heavily affect how college sports is able to get off the ground. But I know at this point, we have a great commissioner. We have a great set of athletic directors within the national, within the NCHC, and they talk on a weekly basis about different contingency plans and adjusting the schedule. I know that there's 3 or 4 different schedules out there with different start dates, because we certainly want to have a season, but we want to do it in a way that is I think, one, safe, but two, can be competitive and hopefully end in a national championship, unlike we were able to do this year.
You know, it's the other part of it, obviously, is scholastically for these kids. And I remember when one year George was telling me about the grade point average of the team, and I just kind of looked at him like, holy cow. I mean, you do recruit, not just hockey players, like some schools I won't name, but you do bring in students. What is the situation scholastically then for them? Are they going to come to DU? Are they going to, because I know my daughter is going to CU, and she's going back in a while, but it's still going to be structured. We haven't quite figured that one out yet. So what is it going to be scholastically for your guys?
Yeah, I think a lot of universities around the country are trying to answer these questions and figure it out. And I think our leadership, our chancellor, has done a really good job being open about their timelines and their processes and in what they're looking to do. And 100% they want to have students on campus this fall. And so they've set the start date of when school will be. They've set finals for the fall quarter. Have they communicated that it might look a little bit different? Yeah, they have. And I think they're adjusting. We were told July 15th that the fall schedule was going to be fully released. So I think they're working really hard behind the scenes, day and night, to, they call it, it's not declutter, but it's try and thin out the campus a little bit, so there's not as much interaction. So I think a classroom that typically holds 12 people might go into a room that holds 30, and a room that holds 30 might go into a room that holds 60. De-densify is the word that they've been using. And then some, you might be online for one class a week, and for the second class of the week, you might be in person. And that might flip-flop, So I think they're being really creative and forward-thinking and trying to think about what's best, one, again, for the health of our students, and two, the health of their educational experience. We did online for the whole spring quarter, the whole university did, and as did, many of the people on the call with their children and whatnot at home. And I think everybody can admit that was a challenge. And I think it'd be preferable for everybody if it was in person, in a safe and environment where the kids can learn, but learn in a safe way. So I know those are the things that they're talking about on our campus, and you see different things around the country. So absolutely, our kids will, I believe, be on campus this fall in person classes. The next question I think that I have, and Emily was nice enough to give me sort of a structure, but this is the one that is certainly fascinates me the most, especially when you deal with coaching and coaching at the level that you're at the time that these kids are coming into your program, between 18 years old and 23, in that time frame. And now all of a sudden across this country, obviously the pandemic, there is the economic situation, which is just horrific. Unemployment is, because I just know myself, if you can't support your family, it is the worst feeling that you can have. But, then there is certainly the next situation, the racial justice situation. And what part do you feel that you play inside of that? Because, but just by way of history, there are four Black players now in the Hockey Hall of Fame. And there is Grant Fuhr, who's goaltender for Edmonton. There's, let me get the name right, Amelia James, pardon me, Canadian hockey player, and now Jerome McGinley and Willie O'Ree. And Willie O'Ree played for my dad's team in San Diego. And so I got to be stick boy when Willie was playing. And Willie now is an ambassador for the National Hockey League as far as, bringing groups together and all of these things. One of the nicest, kindest, best people in the world. But I heard things that were said to him that I was a young kid coming from a small town in Canada down to San Diego.
And I had never, my brothers and I tried to figure if there was even a family of color in the city that we lived in, this little town, New Westminster. And so we came down to the Cultural Revolution in Southern California in the 60s. And it was incredible. You didn't know how to deal with all of the situations that were going on. And certainly the situation with Willie was horrific. How he handled it he is a man of honor. But we are in a situation now where it seems as though we want to change. And how as a coach and a coaching staff, do you think you are going to approach what is the most interesting, different time that I think that any other coach has had in a long, long time?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, and I appreciate the question. I think it's you look at the history of our country, and it's a unique history unlike any others in the world. And some really bad things have happened in our past, and that we're still rightfully going after and trying to correct today, and is there injustice in the world? Absolutely. And so we've talked to our players about it. Our department has talked pretty extensively about it, and we've given the student athletes within our department a space to speak about it and to share and to talk to us as adults about their experiences as well. And the one thing, and I think I don't think we have all the answers today, and it's as far as how and everything that we can do, I don't have all the answers today. What we talked about with our players was I don't believe it to be really my job to shape their opinion on certain things, but I do believe that as members of our institution, our program, they should look to learn and listen and educate themselves. And that's what we've been doing as a staff. I can tell you that's what I've been doing. And then it's about giving our student athletes a space to be able to start these conversations, and they're not easy conversations to have. And it was really moving to hear from some of our student athletes experiences that they've had in their life. And our players were involved in that meeting as well. And a lot of our players come from similar towns as you, Peter. And
you still there, Emily?
Yep, I can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you, Peter.
Can you hear me, Emily?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. And so, yeah, I mean, half of our team is international, and they're not from the States, and they don't know our unique history. And so anyways, I think that it was a good opportunity for them to listen and learn. And at the end of the day, we've encouraged our players, just like we always do. It's about being a good person and treating everybody with respect. And the golden rule of the Bible, do unto others as you would have others do unto you. Like, I don't know if it's for us in what we can do in our action. I think that's where it starts first. It's treating everybody with respect and being a good person and doing the right things. And if you're not, and you know this as well as anybody, Peter, then you're not going to be a part of our program for very long. And that's just the truth. We want good people that are great ambassadors of this university and of our hockey program, because a lot of people like yourself, we talked at the start, 70 years of Denver hockey. We stand on the shoulders of the people that have come before us, and they've worked really hard for this reputation. And it's our job to carry the torch. And a big part of that is being good people within our community and respecting everybody that we come in contact with.
Yeah, it is interesting. I have been around the game a long time, and one of the things that I have found, without question, bad locker rooms don't win. They just don't win. Good locker rooms are made up of good people, and I know for a fact that winning teams have good character inside a locker room, and they will help take care of things, because not everybody's going to go down the right path all the time. But if you have people inside that locker room that can help you bring you back to where you should be, and you can my two oldest daughters were born there, and I have told them so many times that the lessons I learned about friendship, teamwork, being a good person, reaching out, understanding other people's situations, I passed on. And so it's not just inside the locker room you learn. You take these things and you bring them into your life. And I think that it started for me at DU when I talked about those 7 other freshmen. We leaned on each other because it was Murray's teams when he first came in were older, much older. And all of a sudden you had players like myself that were from the States and Minnesota and Michigan at the time. I believe Murray's first ever draft guy. So I had a draft number and the Vietnam War. And it was a different and changing time. And, you know, the war was not something that was, you know, you wanted to think about too much. I mean, you didn't want to. I went to San Diego, military town, and boy, it was not like now. I can remember my buddies where I used to walk through the military housing and pick guys up on the way to school, and they didn't even want to tell people that their dads were in the military because it was just that's just not where this country was at that time, and it's changed so dramatically. But we were coming in and we needed each other to help each other to understand that we were young. And you're right. I mean, it's about being a good person. It's about helping out each other and asking each other tough questions and asking each other about your feelings and things like that. So I just think it's the responsibility you have and the responsibility you give to your captains and things like that. It must be very rewarding when you know you put together a good team, like, you know, in the dressing room with each other and on the ice.
No, absolutely. And, you know, I was golfing yesterday with Will Butcher, Troy Terry, and Logan O'Connor. And, you know, we left after a day of golf. Tavis and I were golfing with them, and would have loved to have Monty there as well, but he's moving up to St. Louis right now. And, you know, we golf with those guys. We went out, we were only gonna play 18 holes. We ended up playing 36, and they're members at the course. They're, you know, hey, come out, don't worry about it, we got you. You know, now they're taking care of us. And we leave the course, and all those guys were a part of the 2017 team that won it. And, you know, I said to Tavis, I'm like, it's no wonder we won. You know, not only were they really good players, but you know what, they're stand-up human beings, and they're great kids. And now you hear them talking about, you know, weddings and kids and engagements. And I think that, you know, this is really my first wave of that, of former players getting into that in life. And it's wildly rewarding. And to your point, you need good people to win championships. And if there's a program that knows that, it's Denver with all the championships that we've won.
Okay, now we get to bring out. Let's talk about this year's team. If I'm adding up my numbers correctly, I believe 29 guys that you have. Is that about right?
It'll be 26.
26.
Yep.
Is there 8 freshmen coming in, or is that how did I count?
There's 7 freshmen and then 2 transfer students. So it'll be 9 new. Yep.
So you got 9. You got 9 new guys.
Yep.
Maybe talk about them first and what you're expecting from that group as you bring them along into the program.
Yeah, I think we're really excited about this group, as we always are. But you know, I'll start with the transfers. You know, you lose 2 players early in Mitchell and Peterson on the back end, and then up front, and it's really hard to replace those guys. You know, they're obviously all-world players at our level and all-American status players, and really excited for them and their new beginnings with Calgary and Chicago respectively. But bringing in Jandrick up front. He played the last 3 years at Fairbanks, and I think he's going to add a lot to our forward group up front. He led Fairbanks in points last year. We played against him. He's a dog on a bone without the puck, and he's got some skill to be able to put the puck in the back of the net. And Hansen was at St. Lawrence, actually played some of his youth hockey out here in Colorado. He's an Idaho kid, and really excited to add him on the back end. Again, 3 years of college experience, and then bringing in 7 freshmen. I'd say it's probably, I'll talk about a couple guys on the back end. Tuomisto is a second-round pick of Detroit. Last summer, he was taking the pick after Brink, and he's from Finland. We're continuing that pipeline of European, Finnish, and Swedish players. And so he's going to step in and really help, I think, alleviate the loss of Mitchell. And so is Mike Benning. He's from the Edmonton area up in Alberta, was CJHL Defenseman of the Year in all of Canadian Tier 2 junior hockey. In 2 seasons up there, I think he had over 160 points as a defenseman. And so he's a really dynamic player. He's going to come in as a true freshman. Would expect his name to get called in the draft when it happens. And then Carter Savoy coming in up front. He scored 50 this year in the Alberta Junior Hockey League and was Benning's teammate. If he did that in any other league in the world, people would be talking about it as his first-round pick. So we're really excited about the group. McCade Webster, Connor Capone, a couple USHL players that are going to add a lot of really good talent and depth and competitiveness too. So we're really excited about the group overall, and really what we have coming back. We have a big senior class. It's this group of seniors replaced Butcher's group of seniors after the 17 championship run, and that was about an 8 or 9 person class. And so this is a big group. They've been through a lot in their 4 years, and they're pretty determined to try and leave as Butcher and his class did. So we're really excited about next year's team.
You know, one of the things when, again, you draw back on when I was at Denver, and Murray's recruiting was pretty much British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan. And then the year that I came, it sprinkled in Thunder Bay and a few other places. And now, I mean, I was looking down, and when you said Finland and Sweden, I said, well, you do have a player from Norway, and I'm Norwegian. So, you know, you're expanding your horizons. But how do you find these guys? I mean, because, you know, you got California kids who weren't just born there and then moved to some hockey hotbed. They actually play there. You got Colorado kids. You've got kids coming in from Europe. You know, you've got Quebec. You've got, you know, almost every province. How do you bring the team together? I mean, what is the process of finding all these guys?
Yeah, it's you know, I think we have a footprint that really, I mean, you go back to Murray, it was Western Canada, and that's still a huge part of our footprint. And I would say to people, like, we're not reinventing the wheel, our staff. I think, as you kind of alluded to it, you started to branch out a little bit more. And I just think that footprint's gotten a little bigger as hockey has expanded. And, you know, you were in California, like you said, in the 60s. And, you know, now we go to camps in California to recruit and to watch kids. And I think we had 5 or 6 on our roster last year alone. And you're right, they grow up in California playing within that system. And I just think the spread of hockey, youth hockey, has really helped our program be able to recruit in different areas. But there's no doubt we primarily recruit out of Western Canada, the Western US, and I think it's probably Frank in his time in the late 80s, early 90s, and carried on by George and his staff, started to get into the Scandinavian countries. And I think that's something when Monty and I and Tavis sat down, you know, back in 13, 14 time, we thought about, hey, where can we have an advantage? And we started taking trips over to Finland. And that was when we got Borgstrom, and it's really opened the door to Heikkinen and Krona and Peterson, and now Tuomisto coming. So it's a thing where I think you do well in an area, you do right by kids. It comes back to relationships. Tavis and Dallas, I'm blessed with a great staff. And, we develop relationships, we get to know people, and we try and do right by the kids that we get in our program. And I think word spreads, families talk, they communicate. There's a lot of connections. Our alumni group is, we've talked about it. It's all in Western Canada and the Western US. So they know what's going on, and they got near to the ground too. So it kind of starts to snowball and take care of itself as you do a good job with the kids that you have. And at the end of the day, it ends up being about your reputation.
As you were talking, I was thinking, one of the things that must be fascinating when you're bringing in all of these kids, because you got your California kids, you got your Canadian kids, you got your European kids, and you dump them all into a locker room. And culturally, it's just going to be different music, different ideas on eating. Everything is going to be, is it fun to listen to them learn about each other and each other's cultures? And turn that off. That's not even music. All the fun that you have in a locker room.
Oh yeah, I think so. Emilio Peterson, he was our Norwegian, and he was in charge of the music the last 2 years. And I think that guys they're excited for his music to be gone. I'm not sure they're excited for him to be gone, but they're excited for his music to be out of the locker room. And it's really cool to see kind of the melting pot that happens. And Heikkinen one year couldn't go back home to Finland, and so he went up to Calahoo, Alberta, with Ian Mitchell and spent Christmas with his family. We have a farmer on our team, Justin Lee, who's from Wisconsin, Manitoba. And prior to all of this, we had 2 or 3 players that were planning on going up to the farm and to spend a little time on the farm with Justin and just see what his life is like. And so you're right. You get kids from all different backgrounds that get to, come together and share in different experiences. And I think it cultures them a little bit and gives them connections throughout different parts of the world.
Has it cultured you and your staff? Do you have a different appreciation for where some of these guys come from?
Yeah, for sure. For me personally, definitely Finland. I've been over 3 or 4 times now, and I really enjoy it. And I've grown to appreciate their culture. And for me, it's real similar in some ways to where I'm from, being from Alaska. I just think northern people, they kind of have a simpler life typically. And so I love going to Finland. I stopped over in Iceland this past summer, and it actually led to my wife and I going to Iceland over the Christmas holiday. So I joke, my wife got to be in Alaska for June 21, the summer solstice last summer, and then she got to be in Iceland December 21st for the winter solstice. So she got both extremes. I don't think she was real excited that vacation was in Iceland and not on a beach somewhere, but she was a trooper about it, and we had a great time.
Well, we obviously got a lot of folks on here. They're DU fans. What can they do to help out? What can they do to enjoy the experience of being a DU fan?
Yeah, it's a great question. And, truthfully, I probably have put a little thought into it. I think the biggest thing is, when we come back, come and support. And I think everybody will do that. I think everybody's itching for DU hockey to be back. And we're blessed with a great group of people that do support our program at a really high level and in many different ways. And I don't mean just financially. There's a lot of people that care immensely about this program because of the history and tradition that it has. And so I just say keep flying the DU hockey flag. And, when the time comes, that we're going to be ready, and we expect everybody else to be ready to come back and cheer us on. And I know it's a day that we're all looking forward to, certainly in a big way.
Well, Emily, do some people have some questions?
Yeah, we do. And please, again, use the Q&A. Let's see, first question here. This question is for you, Coach. Any more insight on recruiting more brother combos? Some great success with it.
That's funny. I got to be careful because I can't talk about kids we haven't signed. We just got a brother. His brother plays at North Dakota. So if you remember back to the test suite days when JP was playing for us and Mike was playing at CC, we'll have a brother on Denver and a brother on North Dakota here in a couple years. So that'll be, I think, a fun thing. We had the Savoy brothers coming. Unfortunately, the younger brother signed in the Western Hockey League. Matt Savoy, really, really good player. But as we talked about Carter, Carter scored 50 this year, and we're really excited to have him. But I'm trying to think other brother combos. There's no Shore brothers in the pipeline, so we need some of you guys to start procreating and getting 3 or 4 for us. My brother's got a son now, so he's 2, so we'll get there eventually. But maybe he'll have one more, and we can have him and his little brother.
There you go. Another one for Coach. As you know, chemistry is such an important part of a hockey team. Can you talk a bit about how you've been trying to maintain that chemistry during this time, especially with new freshmen coming into the team?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, typically this time of year, a lot of our kids are home, but our incoming freshmen come onto campus right around June 15th to start taking summer school classes. And they'll take 2 or 3 classes. They'll be here to train and skate for 6 weeks. So get to interact with our alumni in the area that are skating as well and training in the weight room. And they get to interact with a lot of our returning players that come back really for the month of July is when they come back. And so it's certainly something that's missed. And I feel bad for our incoming guys right now because they aren't getting that experience. But what we've done early on, we created 3 different groups that our captains were kind of at the top of, and they would do bi-weekly Zoom calls with 6 to 8 kids on the team. And then once there's NCAA rules to when the freshmen can actually join in on these calls, and they've been able to do that for a couple weeks now. So we're trying to integrate them in virtually the best we can and get it so that at least they can start to develop some level of comfort with the returning players that they're not normally getting. So those would be some of the things that we're trying to do, again, utilizing this technology to make sure that people are connecting.
Awesome. I think Peter dropped off, so hopefully he'll be able to jump back on. So I'll try to do my best substituting in.
No
you talked a little bit about, what's going on, campus discussions about bringing kids back to campus. Can you give some insight into the conversations going on about bringing fans back to Magnus?
Yeah, I mean, I could tell you the truth. I don't know much about it at this point. I think we're all hopeful that we're going to be able to have fans in our building. I think so much is unfortunately going to depend on the government guidelines, as the state of Colorado and the city of Denver, in the level of, I guess the denseness that they'll allow buildings to be at capacity. And again, I hate having to be reactionary. I don't enjoy doing that with how I coach and how we run our program. But unfortunately, in this situation, we're going to be reactionary based on, what the Avalanche do, what the Broncos do, and the Nuggets, and really see what that all looks like. And obviously our hope is to have as many people in the building as we can. But unfortunately, I think it's going to be so out of our control and in our hands. And so that's kind of where those things are at right now. It really is a holding.
Hey, I'm back.
Peter, you made it.
I've around a little bit, but I found you.
This is exclusive. We get a tour of Peter's house.
Am I locked out again?
Might be.
Frozen.
All right. Let's see. Another great question. Coach, how have the guys been keeping in shape during this time?
Yeah, so Matt Shaw is our strength and conditioning coach, and he's been doing a great job communicating with our guys. They do when we were in school, they were doing weekly Zoom calls just about their nutrition and then their workout conditions that they were in. And we were talking a little bit before we went live on the call, just, and Peter can attest to this, how unique and individualized the training is today than it's ever been. And even if all of our kids were in Denver, they'd all be on some variation of a certain program. And now, given that they're at home, not only are they on different programs because of their body type and their different goals, but they're on different programs due to the resources available to them. And so some guys are really fortunate and maybe have a little home gym or some resources in their garage or in their basement that their parents had for them, from the age of 14 on. But some guys don't have anything and they've got no weights and they've got to try and do everything maybe outside or really impromptu. They're building, squat racks with 2 nets next to each other and putting a barbell on them and just trying to be creative with it. And I think initially it was kind of fun and enjoyable for them, but now they're certainly ready to get back into the weight room with the amenities and the great resources that we have on campus.
And for those of you who don't know, Matt Shaw is part of our Pioneer Performance team, and they're also in charge of getting our student athletes back on campus and are doing just a tremendous job of organizing that and coming up with a plan A, B, and C. So absolutely, Matt's a very, very important part of our hockey program.
Yeah, and we should say too that Matt and then our athletic training team led by Julie Campbell. I mean, they've been pouring hours and hours into a return and a reopening of campus and a reopening of the department. And Stu Hossel's been very involved in that as well. And just working around the clock on all these scenarios. And this week we actually, for the first time, did have student athletes back in the weight room with Matt and his staff. And none of them are hockey players yet because they're all at home. It's really for kids that are in town here as a pilot program, but the ball is rolling with a return and a reopening of campus.
Another great question here. Culture is so crucial for sustainable long-term success. Can you chat specifically about the culture you seek and how you go about integrating it to the team?
Yeah, for us, it really it starts in the recruiting process, and it's trying to identify really good people that come from good families. And what I mean by that is, we try and find kids that are held accountable by their parents, that hold them to a high standard, allow them to fail a little bit. They don't hold their hand through their whole childhood and their hockey career, because I don't really, doesn't matter how good you are or how perfect you are, you're going to face adversity at some point in your life, and oftentimes in sport, it will happen at the college level. And it doesn't matter how good you are, how hyped you are coming in. And so we try and find players that come from families that hold them accountable to high standards and treat them with honesty, because that's how we really try and handle them. And so getting into, I guess, further our culture, we ask kids what they're looking for in their experience. And if the first thing out of their mouth is to play in the NHL and that's all they really talk about, that's probably not the right place. If all they're talking about is wanting to party, we'll probably end the conversation. And those things have happened, So we talked about it on the onset. We look for kids that want to have a great academic, social, and athletic experience. But the other big thing is that they want to be a part of something bigger than themselves. And trying to find selfless people in the recruiting process, it can be a challenge at times. I would say people can grow and learn within that as they integrate into our culture. But those are really big things that we talk about. We try and be as upfront, open, and honest as we can in the recruiting process, so that kids know when they come to Denver that they shouldn't be surprised by how we communicate, how we handle them, what our expectations, our standards are. They got to commit here eyes wide open. And we find that that's the best way to recruit. And the kids that we don't get, they go to other programs. Typically if we've been ourselves, then we can all look at each other as a staff at the end of those conversations and say, you know what, he just wasn't for us. Mm-hmm. And there's lots of hockey players out there. There's lots of hockey players that want to come to Denver, and it's our job to make sure we get the right ones.
And sort of along the same lines, so when we obviously had some guys that went early this year to the NHL, do you have those conversations with them throughout the season so you can kind of prepare to either bring in grad transfers or freshmen, or how do those conversations go so that you can plan for future seasons?
Yeah, that's a great question. We try and I think last year we had 6 drafted players on our team. We usually vary between 4 and 8, and I believe it's our job to have a really good open line of communication with the NHL teams that the kids are drafted by. We're fine with kids leaving early if they're ready for that step, and if we have the ability to plan for it. And typically when you have the ability to plan, then you're going to be okay. And so like Ian Mitchell, for example, we started having conversations with Ian at the Christmas time of his sophomore year, as far as what his plans were going to be. And we probably started talking to his parents maybe the fall before his sophomore year, and we were constantly talking to Chicago about it. And everybody knew Ian was going to leave after his junior year. And so what did that do for us? It allowed us to go recruit Ante Tuomisto, a second-round pick, just like Ian, to kind of be the guy to come in and potentially replace him. Allows us to go get a guy like Michael Benning, who's a dynamite power play defenseman like Ian was. And it gives you an opportunity to plan. And can you plan perfectly every time? No, you can't. Have we been caught, on occasion with an early signing in the summer that we didn't expect? We certainly have. But the more we can talk about it and get it out, everything on the table, the easier it is for us to plan. And it's also our job to tell kids when we think that they're ready and when we think that they aren't. And there's a lot of times those conversations are, hey, absolutely, like, use our printer, use our scanner, like we want to shake your hand after you sign, wish you the best of luck. And, and there's other times where you got to be direct with them. And I think it's a place of caring, because we do care about these kids. And have we disagreed at times? Certainly we have, but it doesn't change, I don't think, our relationship and us cheering the kids on.
I have a question that has interested me, because Denver now with the Eagles and with DU, the Avalanche, CC, Air Force, I have a lot of friends in scouting. And this is about as good a place to come. If you plan right, you can see 6, 7, 8 games over a week, time, and not have to just sit there, just go up and down the 25 corridor. But that being said, you get a lot of people coming in. How do you handle scouts that are around, scouts that want to talk to players? I mean, do you tell them no, that you only have certain times? There have been coaches, very high-profile coaches, that don't allow their players to talk to scouts. I mean, and for you yourself, what is the policy that you have talking to your players? Because you don't want them talking to them all the time, I wouldn't think.
Yeah, we try and I think it's our job to help filter that for our players, because it's really hard for player X to tell his NHL team, hey, it's too much. I need to be a kid. I need to focus on where I'm at. If we could talk less, that'd be great. It's really hard for a kid to do that, and so that's where we have to help and be a buffer sometimes. And I think every year is different how it kind of unfolds. I would say, this year we implemented a rule in probably the last 2 months that the only time NHL teams could talk to their players was after Saturday night games. And so if you're going to come in on Friday, you couldn't talk to them after Friday night. You could wait around, watch again on Saturday, and talk to them after our game on Saturday. But I do think it just varies team to team and year to year a little bit. There's no hard and fast rules. As much as we want to, I think it all comes back to relationships. You know, the day a kid's drafted, we start that communication with that NHL team. And most NHL teams are so heavily staffed now. They have a development guy that goes around, sees all their prospects, and you just start to develop relationships with them. You kind of lay out the ground rules. Hey, you know, just call us when you're coming into town. We'll get you know, we'll help you out. You can spend time with them. We have a shared responsibility. We want them in the NHL with you just as badly as you do. And we try and work together with the teams on it. And for the most part, that works really well. You know, 95% of the time it works great.
So last question here, one of the better ones. How many years will it be until we tie or surpass University of Michigan with our 9th and 10th NCAA championships? No pressure.
Yeah, that's a great question. If we play this year, we'll tie number 9 this year, and I don't think it'll be much longer before we pass them. It's certainly, I think we're in a position, as we have been for the last 25 years, to be in contention every year. And with where we're at as a program, the support we get from our community and our alumni, there's no doubt that we should be knocking at the door to pass them here in the next 3 to 5 years.
You know, that's got, in my mind, that's got to be one of the really things that could really make you feel proud that your program will be there every year. You know, and I know when I go, I probably travel around the country as much as you do into various parts of the hockey world. And when I say, you know, DU, Denver, there is an understanding that it is a top flight hockey scholastic situation. And I think that probably as much as anything is what you're trying to build is not, you can build for 1 year, you can get some one and dones. But, you know, if you want it to sustain, it has to be, as you said, it has to be good people over a long period of time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I just, there's nobody for me that's bigger than the program. Like there's not one individual. And I think we've really, we're really fortunate to have been led by great people up to this point within the university, our department, but certainly at the head coach position of our hockey program. And not many programs can sustain the level of success that we've had over the last 70 years and certainly over the last, you know, 10 to 25 years. And to do it now with 3 different head coaches as well, and to really not miss a beat at any changeover, I think is really impressive. And it speaks to me, it speaks to the foundation that this program has. And it's a great city. It's a great university. It's great tradition. And as long as what my brother told me when I got the job, he just said, just don't screw it up now and drive it into the ground. You know? And so it's the infrastructure's here. I told you with recruiting, we haven't reinvented the wheel. I think we're trying to tweak and do things a little different here and there, but the infrastructure is here to really be great every year because of the type of people that we attract. And again, it's the people on this call, a lot of you that are the reason why it is that way.
Well, thank you. Wonderful way to end this hour. Thank you, Coach. Thank you, Peter, especially for hanging with us during some technical difficulties. I appreciate your time.
I had to wander around. The dog followed me. So
there you go.
Very truly, thank you for letting me be involved. It brings back, trust me, so many great memories. And, you know, I'm always so proud to talk about the program that I came from and the program that you guys have put together. So thanks very much.
Thank you, Peter. We appreciate your time, and thank you everybody for being here, and stay safe. And we're looking forward to this fall, hopefully with everybody back in the building.